Hello, pod smashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
ATDDDD, 80-bit pot smash does everything Kirby, where gaming goes to grab a beer.
We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right. I should have said where gaming goes to open up wide and inhale a beer.
Yes.
Taking on its power for your own. Smashing together ideas you care about with video games inside one's belly, one's pink and porous belly.
Yes.
All right.
In case you haven't figured out what we're talking about tonight, we are doing an episode, Everything Kirby.
That's right. That's the topic we are covering tonight. It's one of our series to pick a franchise and talk everything we can about it in the 40 minutes. We usually follow a kind of format. We talk about the history. We talk about the game's pedigree, what it is, but we also talk about like our favorites about it, like our experiences with it. Sometimes there are more experiences that I have with each one, and sometimes Termite has more with each one. I assume you have more experience with Kirby than I do, but it's fine. We will talk more about all of that, but we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a beer from Ballad Brewing. Do you remember where Ballad Brewing is from? Because you are the one that introduced me to it. Yes, that's the brewery.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you got it. That's correct. So Ballad Brewing from Danville, Virginia, which you had a beer on the show, and I don't think it was this one, but it could have been.
Right.
I've never had it, so it's new to me. It's called their Irish Ale. Did you have that?
I didn't have it.
Did
I don't
you do
think
that?
so. Nope. I don't
Okay.
think so.
On the can, it says, light-bodied, crisp, and refreshing malty ale brewed with authentic malt from a malting company of Ireland for the true Irish ale. And it really does taste like an Irish ale, which is kind of like remove the hops and replace with malt, which gives it more of a porter stout kind of flavor with the
Like dark
body
and
of
roasty.
an IP. It is dark and roasty, very much so. But it feels like if I had no taste buds and I just drank it, I would think, oh, this is an IPA, like something in that flavor, because the way that it's like fizzy and light bodied. So it's interesting. It's a good combination here. It's good.
I'm drinking Pilsner Urquell or Urkel. I don't know how it's pronounced because it is from Plzeň, Czech. So it's from Eastern Europe, I guess. Like I don't.
Nice.
Oh wait, no, hold on. They tricked me. Pilsner Urquell beer imported by Pilsner Urquell USA from the Czech Republic. Okay, great. That's what I thought. I was like, I don't want to say. I don't want to say the wrong country. So Czech Republic, and good, because I saw Washington DC on there. I was like, they tricked me, but no, it is imported, and it is it looks like a Pilsner. It's the original Pilsner. So I have no other details here for you, but I'm gonna give it a taste. I love me a good Pilsner, and I love a good imported beer from time to time. Right, like it's always nice sometimes to get something from overseas. Given that I probably will never get to go there and taste the beer directly myself, at least not for several years until my kids are grown up.
Pilsner Urquell, is that what you're having?
Yeah, it's way more flavorful than I picture like Pilsners to be. Like when I think of a Pilsner, I think of like a Heineken, kind of, where it's like, it's kind of crisp, but also kind of watery with just a little bit of that alcohol taste. Not bad, but not great. This is like, boom, like flavor. Very, almost citrusy. Like I almost think of this as like more like a wheat beer is with the taste of it. But it does have that kind of like, for lack of a better term, skunky aftertaste, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep, I know exactly.
Which I kind of associate with Pilsners. Like not obviously not bad, but like a little bit of that like funk to it. So yep.
So is this the green bottle with like the ink stamp logo?
Mine's brown, but it does have the ink stamp logo. So
and it's called Pilsner Urquell.
Pilsner Urquell. Like
okay, the internet says that you're drinking a lager.
That would make sense to what flavor I'm experiencing. But
Pilsner Urquell is the world's first pale lager. Its popularity meant that it copied and named Pilsner, or Pilsner.
It says the original says. Pilsner. What is a Pilsner? Define
Pilsner. Pilsner is an English word that translates from Pilsen. Pilsen is the city in the now Czech Republic where the style was born.
Where this is from.
Right. So while Pilsners have grown to become the most popular beer style in the world, the original is the Czech version.
Okay, so
you are drinking a lager. So I think what you're confused about. Pilsners are lagers.
Okay, that's fine. It's a Pilsner.
There is a German Pilsner, and that's different, but there's a whole thing about that, too.
You got me all riled up for nothing.
I
feel like I'm
I don't know why.
Up. I think I just want to fight. I want to fight something today.
Wow.
I named myself Foul Tarnished in our Zencaster chat.
You did.
So That must be.
We're not talking about anything but Kirby.
No. Well, let's transition into our banter to talk a little bit about Elden Ring. We talked today, and we both agreed we want to ramp up our streaming. So consider this a pre-announcement, though. From the airing date of this episode, we might actually be close to doing this. So if we haven't already blasted social media talking about our streaming plans, just know, everybody, consider this sort of like a precursor to keep your eyes glued to Twitter and Facebook and all the other social medias where we make announcements, because we're going to ramp up streaming again, but we're going to change some things, and we're going to kick it off by doing a stream review plus bonus audio episode of Elden Ring. And that will be our new streaming format going forward. Once a month, we will be doing a live stream reviewing whatever hot game that we're all about that month. And if we don't have a good game that month, then we might dig into our backlog of games that we both loved and played to talk about those. And in general, yeah, we're going to be talking about a game each month, and while we're simultaneously playing it, and you'll get both of us. So instead of just one of us playing a game a week, we're going to get together once a month, but we're going to do a full-blown live stream with it, so you can give your impressions along with us, and it'll be a nice long 2-hour affair, so you can sit back and get a snack and or just dip in and out as you have availability, and hopefully we'll have a good time. So look forward to that. But we're going to be reviewing Elden Ring, so I figure we can talk a little bit about Elden Ring. A little bit about Elden Ring. That's an admonishment for me. But the game came out. It just came out last week. We talked about how it was the week that it was coming out. Now it's out. We have our hands on it. First impressions. Also, the other like kind of thing that dropped after we recorded from last week was the whole 97 on Metacritic. So, I mean, this game is taking the world by storm. People were talking about how it was going to exceed expectations, and that does seem to be the case. However, it is Termite's first Souls-like From Software experience, and so I really quickly want the one thing I want to point out. If this is the only thing we talk about, that's fine. I just want to say you now have officially earned the right to talk about these games from an informed perspective, and no longer can I say you've never played them, you don't know what you're talking about. Now you know what you're talking about, at least on some level, with some experience. I told you, I said the barrier was 5 hours. I said you have dumped 5 hours in Elden Ring at this point, so now you can talk about From Software games from an informed opinion.
13 now.
Do you want to give your thoughts so
far? I don't feel like I've
not
experienced...
the full-blown review. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I don't think I've experienced a From Software title. I really don't. It doesn't match up to anything anyone has talked about what makes From Software as far as super difficult and grindy and it's just not. It's different.
No,
it's different.
It doesn't have the perception you had on those things that people have given you. I tell you, as someone who has played From Software games, this is so thoroughly From Software. Everything about it, including what you perceive to be the easier difficulty. Like I've been saying, man, these games are not that difficult. Your perception has been warped by a culture that talks about them as if they are these punishing, unforgiving games. And sure, they are challenging, and sure, they are unforgiving at times, but they're not actually that hard for people who play video games on a regular basis like you and me and have a general acumen for these things.
I mean, I hear like reviews of Bloodborne where they're talking about spending a half hour to an hour clearing ads to then just get to a boss with already severely weakened health because of the 30 enemies they just went through, and then having to meet the boss at that state and then die immediately because they're not even ready for the boss, and then have to respawn and go through all 30 enemies again. Yeah, that's like throwing the controller to the TV. That's awful.
Nope.
I don't ever want to do that.
That experience, they must not know how the shortcuts in that game, never figured out how the shortcuts in that game work, because literally that never happened to me once.
Oh,
every single boss in Bloodborne has a checkpoint that is they're not as close as Elden Ring in my experience so far. It looks like there's like a checkpoint with you pretty much a straight beeline to the boss with no enemies, and pretty much every boss that I've experienced so far in Elden Ring, which is cool. It means you get to retry them over and over and over again without having like the scenario you experienced. But even in the earlier games, Bloodborne and the like there may be a few enemies, but usually you can run past them straight to the boss with all your stuff ready to go in every single boss encounter in that game. So whatever reviews you read about killing 30 enemies and walking in with barely health every single attempt, they suck. They suck.
A podcast.
They don't
from,
just suck.
The churn of video game podcasters that I listen to.
Well, those podcasters, it's not just that they suck, because that's not the point. Like everyone sucks at these games at some point. It's that they never learned the core gameplay loop of the game. So for that reason, I can judge them. Is like, no, you just don't like you.
You did it
never
wrong.
figured out. You did in this case. You genuinely not just you like you're learning, you're growing. No, you apparently failed to learn, and so therefore you deserve to hate the games, right? Like, and yeah, whatever. That's fine. That's fine. That's
Rant.
fine.
But
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
so From Software
Sorry.
title, okay. I have not struggled in Elden Ring to any actual lengths of frustration that like I found the item, but it's been because of community discourse of like helping me along. So like I didn't know there was an item to wreck the first boss, like by chaining the boss to the ground long enough to deplete half his health before.
That for
That was awesome.
After
Yeah, you did.
like me and a colleague, while we were all on voice chat together, we discovered that after we had already not been able to do it. Like we had struggled through that boss, and he is, oh man, he's so aggressive. And I was like, the one thing I wish I could do right now is root him to the ground and just blast him with magic for like even 5 seconds.
That's what I did.
And that's
that's exactly what I did, because the item did that. And then the second boss, there's I thought like there's an NPC that you summon to help you, and so I thought that was kind of like the game gave that to you.
Oh yeah,
And
well,
so,
they not every boss in those games do you have NPCs to summon, but like the vast majority of it. In fact, Dark Souls 2, the redheaded stepchild, like I don't think I encountered a boss that I couldn't summon for until like much like several bosses into the game. Like yeah, there's very frequently NPCs you can summon. It's often tied to there's a restrictive mechanic usually tied to it, some kind of limiting thing, so you can't just like in Elden Ring, it's the most forgiving. You literally can do it over and over and over again at no cost to yourself. In the previous games, there was, you kind of had to decide, okay, if this is just an attempt, I probably don't want to summon someone if I'm just trying to learn it. But then when you're like ready to go, summon someone, NPCs. And most of the community is very supportive of that. It's only the like try hard, toxic gatekeeper-y members of the community that are like, you didn't really beat the boss if you had help. But the vast majority of the community usually polices that, shuts that crap down. In fact, I just saw a meme about it today on the Elden Ring subreddit. So
nice.
Sorry, I said I wouldn't talk.
Yeah. So then the second boss, you summon an NPC and the game gave that to you. So I have a 2 for 2 with big story bosses. There's a lot of like world bosses and like random bosses you find at the end of caves and stuff. Not counting that, but just 2 for 2 main story bosses. They're the first 2 ones you encounter. The game Elden Ring gave you the thing to make that boss significantly easier. So I'm just wondering when that training wheel is removed for the next one.
Godric was the training wheel. I mean, Godric was the training wheel being removed, right? Like,
I guess so,
that was the boss that you don't have. There wasn't a loophole. Exactly, man. There's gonna be bosses that are gonna be easier for some people and harder for others. Sometimes based on build, sometimes just based on like, if you're just someone who doesn't parry well and the boss is primarily designed to teach you parrying mechanics, you're gonna have to struggle through probably a harder strategy, right? Sometimes it's build, right? Melee has a harder time with some fights. Range has a harder time with others, right? So there's definitely going to be bosses that you might struggle with that others might not, and vice versa. But the thing is, man, like I said, you are experiencing a game that is thoroughly From Software and in so many ways. So with me insisting that and not just like trying to get you to like not just making it as an argument, right? For argument's sake, I'm simply saying, is it safe to say that maybe some of your perceptions of From Software games have changed a little bit, or your ideas of what these things are? Not yet.
Not enough. I need to play an actual one that's not, because Elden Ring is lauded as the most approachable. Like you get stuck, you can go somewhere else, open world. It's like not linear. You don't have to do this thing. Like I need to play. I bought Sekiro and I bought Dark Souls Remastered because I wanted to play
Dark
more.
Souls 1 would be the closest analog to Elden Ring with being more in line. I mean, it was the original, right? Like it's the game that started it all, but it has all the like. Sekiro is more of an action game. It doesn't have the RPG level stats mechanics or anything like that. You don't get weapons and choose a build. You just get like more
which
tools.
is appealing
Devil
to
May
me.
Cry.
Yeah,
you unlock
exactly.
No, it's great.
That.
It's a phenomenal game, but it's not going to give you the same direct comparison that Dark Souls would, because it has everything. It has encumbrance and all that stuff. It's all in Dark Souls, so you'll get a better taste. There's also way more info out there, so it's not as hard for that reason too, because you're literally PowerPix's guide, I think, is the one I followed, and it gives you the exact build that you're going to want to do to just blast through the game with no problem. Not no problem, but like, as few problems as possible. And so I would, I'm in support of that. But like at the end of the day, man, I'm telling you, like this is what I guess the only reason I wanted to highlight is if you listener out there saying like, if you've always been on Danny's side of this debate, so to speak, that we've had in our little merry war here, just know that Termite here is also kind of coming to realize, I'm at least observing secondhand, that he's coming to realize that some of his perceptions have definitely been warped by a discourse about it that is untrue. And I know this from personal experience as well. I had certain perception going into Bloodborne my first time, and it's all changed. So sometimes you just got to give the thing a shot, right? And if it's still not for you, at least you can say, it's not for me. I tried it. It's not for me. And that is acceptable, right? But like, it sometimes helps to get in there with someone who is enthusiastic, who can help you, who can help get you excited for the things that makes them excited for it, right? And just kind of share that passion, because despite these games being, themed around like lonely wanderer suffering through a despairing, hopeless world, these games are some of the best community experiences out there at the same time. And people are very supportive and helpful, and there's so much information shared and discussed, and people who are passionate about it, you're in your friends group, will want to help you figure out how to get through it. So yeah, I think that's it's a very unique thing, I think, in the gaming world. You also have, just like everything, the toxic a-holes who scream and cry and moan and just make the community a worse place for everybody, but they're getting better about policing that kind of thing. So
2 more thoughts and then we'll move on. I haven't experienced, okay, that's fine. I haven't seen the internet, the collective internet, and my friend group, which is you included, and among others, Jimothy and other friends that people in the audience don't know. But this discourse hasn't happened in the gaming industry since Red Dead Redemption 2, where everyone was sharing the ridiculous things that happened to them in that massive open world that you could actually influence, and like random stuff would happen like while you're on the road between things, and like you would come upon a robbery and that would escalate to something crazy, and now your horse is dead and you're stuck stranded. It's like just ridiculous things happen, or like you summon the police and you don't mean to because you burst into a bar, and like anyway, that kind of randomness happens. Well, with Elden Ring, because there's no solid linear path, everyone's kind of branched out in different directions. And so it's this excitement of like, oh, there's this scroll that's hidden under this catacomb. Go down here and fight this boss and get this thing. And then go talk to this merchant that's hidden in this church over here that's off the beaten path. And then like you unlock all this cool stuff, and you can build your character this way by doing that. That to me is extraordinarily fun. And that's, I think it's unique to Elden Ring in the From Software lineup. And then I haven't also experienced that.
It's not unique to it, because every time one of these new games comes out, everyone's doing that. Even though they're a little bit more linear, they're also like all kinds of little. I knew Elden Ring was going to be like Breath of the Wild, because I'm pretty sure Breath of the Wild was inspired by Dark Souls in regards to how they pack the world with such dense experiences and sense of discovery. Because again, Dark Souls has never given you points on a wave map. Follow this. Like, yes, they're linear, but the individual paths are linear, but the game itself is very non-linear, and you are often encouraged and sometimes forced in some cases to go like a Metroidvania, go over places you may have been before, but also they're so packed and dense that you also still have a chance of discovering something new each time you go through an area, because they're so packed with secrets and hidden and stuff, and none of it is like explicitly like given, just handed to you on a silver platter like most games do. No, you have to like find it, and if you don't find it, tough luck. Sometimes it's connected to like you might not get a certain ending because you just did something wrong or missed it, and it encourages again that sense of communication and discovery every single time. And this is the first time that I've been on the ground level with it, right? You and myself, right? But every time these games come out, the community is just like ramped up in like sharing.
This is one of those moments where it is unique to be the early adopter. Because usually if you're the early adopter of a game, you get the worst experience. The game's not patched. It's buggy. There's all this stuff to work out. You don't have a guide. It takes longer. And then like if you come in late, you've spent less money, you have a better quality product, and you know what to do because the internet knows what to do. Well, with this, it's almost more advantageous to come in like it is now, because you're making the discoveries along with everyone else. And it helps like breathe that excitement. Right?
Yeah, it's a trade-off, because on the one hand, you're getting to be a part of this. On the other hand, you ain't going to see the platinum for several months, because I guarantee you one of those endings is going to be tied to things that have to be done in a certain order. Like, you have to do things in a certain order. If you let this NPC die here, then you're locked out of that ending. And since you need 3, I'm presuming there's only 3 endings, but you need all 3 endings. I am assuming that it's going to be a while till the community susses out those secrets, right? So if you are a late adopter and you are someone like yourself, where you're very goal-oriented, give it a year or 2, people are going to have fully fleshed out guides with everything. You'll have every piece of information you could ever want in the game at your disposal. Right now, the community is still sussing all that out. And so even things like soft caps, as of today, I still don't think people have figured out what the soft caps on stats are, which sucks, because you have every chance of either under allocating your character or over allocating your character's stats. And it'll be harder to correct that, though granted there's a respec mechanic, so maybe not that hard, but nevertheless, like, the soft caps are going to play a big role in how people build out their characters. But it is time
for trivia.
So I guess for trivia. Yeah.
The last
so we're
very
gonna
quick
skip favorite
thought.
things.
We are going to skip favorite. The last favorite thought of the two thoughts I had was that I did not expect to be able to kill enemies. So I was very surprised. Immediately, minute 1 in the game, I could kill enemies, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." Yeah.
Yay. Yeah, no, that, I mean, yeah, exactly. So, right, then, I mean, it's safe to say Elden Ring is my favorite thing, so we can skip that. Well, we'll have to skip it because we have to do our DLC, which is DLC. Downloadable content is this case, our only other segment of the show where we have a fun mini discussion. But as tradition is for our Everything franchise episodes, we are going to do franchise trivia, Kirby Trivia, where each of us have prepared ahead of time 5 trivia questions we hope the other person doesn't know. And, you'll each go one by one, equal question by question. He'll go, I'll go, he'll go, I'll go, until we're done. Whoever is the winner gets bragging rights and a notch on their victory champion belt or whatever. All of this is metaphorical. None of these physical things actually exist. And so we're doing Kirby. So it's all Kirby-based trivia. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the video games. It could be about the development process. It could be about character story. It could be about game mechanics. It could be anything and everything that is related to Kirby. I believe I won Metroid last time, didn't I?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I don't remember any of them. We still need a tally. We need to,
do.
we're grown adults and we still are like, gosh, none of us ever kept track of these things. And now we're so it's fine. So everything Kirby, we're going to start. I guess I will go first since I'm pretty sure I did win Metroid. So I'll go first with my first question. All right. So my first question for you for Kirby Trivia is, what series staple feature is missing from the very first game? So what can you do in every other game, the mainline games at least, that you cannot do in the first game?
Copy.
Correct.
Yay, I got a point.
Termite. You got it. Yeah. All right. What's your first question?
I'm starting harder, I think, and it'll maybe get easier. So it could be hard. I don't know what your history with Kirby is, so this will be interesting. So question number 1. Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo consists of 8 different games. Spring Breeze is one of the first ones available to players. Spring Breeze is a smaller, updated version of which other Kirby game?
I have no idea.
It is a smaller, updated version of Kirby's Dreamland, which was
I was going to guess that!
Yep.
The whole thing sounded kind of familiar, but
Spring Breeze was the hint. Because that's like the first level in Dreamland. Yeah, so like Spring Breeze, that's why I had it in the question twice. That was the hint. But I tried. I told you it was kind of hard.
It's cool. No, that was that was a good one. We see, the thing is, there was another thing about Dreamland. Like I think they retold the story in something else. I remember reading something like that, and maybe it was exactly what you're describing, but I kind of glossed over that. And that was like, in my head, I was like, I probably should, I don't know. No, it was a subconscious thing. But now in hindsight, I'm like, oh man, should have paid closer attention to that bit of trivia. All right, I was going to guess that. I wish I had. All right, well, cool. So it's now 1-0. My second question is, which game is the first appearance of Meta Knight?
That's my second question for you. And that's...
So, I guess we just nullify that. It's Kirby's Adventure.
Yep, I have it right in front of me. So there you go. That's funny that we both had that as our second question.
Wow.
But I have some extra questions, so it's fine.
All right, cool. Well, we'll cancel it out for now unless we need extra questions. So still 1-0. I'll just skip to my next one.
Okay.
Which game is the best-selling game in the series?
Oh.
And you get a bonus if you can tell me how many copies, like a rough estimate of how many copies.
I'm gonna go with Kirby's Dreamland, and I'm gonna guess 10 million copies.
You were correct on the first point, but not on the second. It's all about half that, 5 million copies. 5.13 million.
I knew 10 was overestimating, but I went with it anyway because Gameboy had been around for so long and they're so prolific. Okay,
all right,
well, I got 2 then.
Guys. 2-0. 2-0.
Cool. What is the name of the remake of Kirby's Adventure? And a bonus, which console is it on? So you're talking about remakes, and you were talking about paying attention. This is a full-blown remake, though. Spring Breeze was like a smaller, updated version. This is like a full-blown remake of Kirby's Adventure.
I don't know what the title is, but I'm going to go ahead and swing a guess at the console. I'm going to go with like Nintendo DS.
Wrong everywhere. 0 points. Fail.
Boo. I'm really getting crushed here. Kirby is a weak point for me, franchise-wise.
The answer is Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, and it was the first Kirby game on the Game Boy Advance.
All right. Wow. So you might like clean sweep all my answers here if you
I
get
don't
the
know.
next two. We'll see.
Okay.
All right. Which was the first game in the Kirby series to feature rendered blood in the game? Like, which was the first one to render blood in the game?
I want to guess Kirby Superstar.
No, it's Dreamland 3.
Ah, the one I haven't played for Super Nintendo. Nice. Okay. Cool. Yeah, there was like this this Japanese countdown reaction time game that was multiplayer where it would be like this old samurai duel and it would be like, oh, and it would be blood on the screen. So I thought that was it, but I guess not. That's what I was going with. It was awesome. That game was a lot of fun. All right. Next question. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Go for it.
What was the last Kirby game that the series creator, Masahiro Sakurai, worked on as part of HAL Laboratory?
Kirby's
Bonus
Air
question.
Ride.
Ooh, bonus question. You got that one right.
Nice.
What console did it come out on?
It was originally designed for the N64, but then was canceled and came out later on the GameCube.
Correct. And super bonus. Never before in the history of 80-bit Pod Smash is there a super bonus tied to a question. But which Kirby game was the last handheld game worked on by Sakurai? And which console?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Darn.
I'll blank on that one.
That was Kirby and
Dreamland
the Amazing
3.
Mirror.
Okay.
No.
Right.
Kirby and the Amazing Mirror on the Game Boy Advance. So you got the answer and the bonus. So you're at 1.5.
1.5. All right. Well, at least I'm not nothing. Okay. I only got one. I got a question and a bonus. Sweet. Well, the fun thing is you've now canceled out my fifth question, so I'm gonna have to go with my bonus backup question.
Was that who designed it or created it?
Well, it was kind of similar. It was the same concept, but it was my wording was which game is rumored to have caused Sakurai to leave HAL Labs. And the answer was Kirby's Air Ride, of course.
Gotcha.
But in this case, I will go with my bonus question as my fifth. You get no bonus.
Okay.
So during the original game's development, during Kirby Dreamland's development, Sakurai, the game creator, director, and Miyamoto, who was involved in its creation through the Nintendo side of things specifically, they argued over what color Kirby should end up being.
Mm-hmm.
So each of them wanted a different color. So you have to get the colors, and you have to match it to who wanted what color to get the full point.
Well, it was pink and white.
Okay.
Pink and white. White ended up on the cover of the game packaging because this dispute was not debated before the game was released. And I want to say...
Are you ready do you want to know if you're correct on the colors first?
Yes.
You are incorrect. You were right about pink, but you were wrong. It was not pink. One of them wanted yellow. So I will give you a half point still if and only if though you can guess who wanted pink.
Yellow would be Miyamoto.
Correct. So pink was Sakurai. So you get a half point. So you have what, like
2.5,
4.5 points, 3.5 points?
I have 2.5.
Do you have 2? Yes, correct. Yes. Okay. Well, you still win. Yay! Wait. No, sorry. I have one more question.
We have more questions.
Redemption. Okay. All right.
Wait. I have 1, 2, 3 questions that I have given you, so I still owe you 2 more.
Well, remember, we crossed out 2. Yeah, but we crossed out 2.
I'm keeping track
because.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you've asked me 3 questions.
I've asked you 3.
Number 4, which would be 5, which would be the 5th question. Effectively.
Correct. But we're still going to ask 5 questions. Are we not?
I don't have a 5th. I have.
Okay.
That was my last. Okay. Yeah. So this is going to be the last. And if it's tiebreaker, I don't know what we're going to do. So we'll have to figure that out.
I have 2 bonus questions, so you could just lose. Okay. Excluding console add-ons and systems that predate the series. So don't think about those. Which Nintendo console is the only one to not have a Kirby game? So no console add-ons and nothing prior to Kirby's Dreamland on the Game Boy, whatever consoles came out prior to that.
N64 had Kirby 64, so I'm gonna guess the Wii U.
False. The Wii U had the Rainbow, the claymation one.
Oh, okay. Oh, lame.
But the answer is the Nintendo Virtual Boy is the only Nintendo console that does not have a Kirby game.
Very nice. Very nice. Awesome. Yep. All right, cool. So you were very specific about that question. I wouldn't have gotten it anyways. It's all good. All right, so that's Kirby Trivia. Termite wins. All right. Well, that leads us into our everything episode on Kirby, the great franchise by HAL Laboratories and published by Nintendo, created by none other than the creator of Smash Brothers, Masahiro Sakurai. And that's what it is. I mean, you want to talk about what kind of game it is real quick?
Sure, it's a side-scrolling platforming game in the repertoire of Nintendo. I would guess that it's geared towards kids. Not everyone would agree with that, but okay.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
it's
geared towards kids. It's a little bit more bubbly, floaty. You fly in it. You suck in air, and you can like hover by tapping A. It's very vertical, so it has a lot of extra verticality than some of like the Mario or Metroid series does. And it's the difficulty isn't that high in some of the games like the other ones are, and it doesn't seem to be that serious. It takes place in the world of Dreamland.
Kirby literally like his only like means of talking is like babbling like a baby, like, and you're saying it's not geared towards kids. I guess it may have it must be not geared towards kids in the way that like Pixar movies are quote unquote not geared towards kids, meaning that they 100% are, but they maybe have some like Easter eggs for grown-ups who are like watching or playing to appreciate.
Yeah.
But you will never ever. Yeah, I'm like the dude in the change my mind. Like Kirby is for kids, change my mind. You're not gonna do it.
Yeah. I mean, people like Kirby and may not like to hear that it's geared towards kids. It could be offended by it. So I'm like trying to be open-minded enough that there is an opinion for those who like might not, whatever. It's fine. If you like Kirby,
they're factually
love
wrong
it and do it.
It's a subjective thing that it's okay to subjectively like things that are for kids. Newsflash. So if you're offended by the notion that that a game that you love, maybe even is your favorite franchise, is geared towards kids, you probably have some insecurities that you probably need to deal with, because 100% my favorite game franchise of all time is still one that I would say is geared towards kids, the Zelda franchise. Like easy. No way.
Got a little bit of a kid bend, yeah.
Yeah, more than a little bit of a kid bend. It's got a little bit of a grown-up bend to it. It's more and more getting geared towards grown-ups, but man. So, all right, cool. Well,
I left one aspect of Kirby out.
Go ahead.
It was a little bit of a feature added later, was the copy ability, like you had mentioned in trivia, where Kirby sucks in his foes and can copy a move that the foe would do. So, like swords.
It was literally added in the second game, and that was like,
right.
And now it's become like a feature defining. Like when people think of Kirby, it's like the defining feature of Kirby. So, cool. All right, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the history. Where did this game come from, Kirby? I'm pulling most of this from the Wikipedia entry on Kirby, but yeah, do you want to start or?
Sure. He first appeared in 1992 in Kirby's Dreamland for the Game Boy. Originally a placeholder created by Sakurai at the age of 19 for the game's early development, he has since starred over 20 games, ranging from action platformers to puzzle racing and pinball. He has been featured in a playable fighter in Smash Bros. He also has his own anime and manga series. Since '99, he has been voiced by Makiko Omoto. So that's kind of some of the history there. But again, starting in the 90s on the Game Boy, it's just been a Nintendo staple. So again, going back to trivia, the only console to not have a Kirby entry was the Virtual Boy. And as the Wikipedia article touched on, there's been so many different genres, facets of Kirby. There's a golf game, there's racing games, there's like every flying around. Yeah. But the like core Kirby franchise is mostly the side-scrolling kind of floaty flying.
I really like to talk about like the origin, like how did this game come to be in the minds of the creator, because once the game, became franchised, you're right. From there, it's just a list of it's a list of games in years they came out, and that's not that interesting. What is interesting is like how did this game as we know it like emerge in the mind of Sakurai, and I do like that little, you kind of glossed over it, but the tidbit of like they originally like just made Kirby as a character that was just like he was supposed to be a placeholder for someone else, like another character that they were like workshopping, but the development team just loved this little gumball floating balloon boy so much that they were like, yeah, let's just keep him. Though I want to highlight something. If you click on the Kirby's Dreamland entry itself and look at the development history, there's a little bit here I love. It was done. The development itself was done on the Twin Famicom, the programming of it. So the disc version, and the Famicom did not have a keyboard support. A trackball was used in tandem with an on-screen keyboard to input values, and Sakurai described the process as using a lunchbox to make lunch. Like,
yes,
which I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. So they're basically programming the thing using the actual like hardware of the thing. So I guess they like had a like jailbroken or whatever that looked like at the time Famicom, and we're using that to program the game. That sounds insane, but that's what they did. So a lunchbox to make lunch. So it's to me, it's a marvel the game ever came out, and no wonder Sakurai is so good at and detailed at making games, because like he's done this crap before.
Yeah. And touching on the fact that Kirby was a placeholder, there was a more like advanced character called Popopo that was in the works But in Kirby's Dream Land was titled Twinkle Popo. So there's that. Eventually, he was renamed Kirby, which I'm surprised there was no trivia question about this. He was named after a lawyer, and that
Oh,
lawyer's
interesting.
name is John Joseph Kirby Jr., which was an American
yeah.
lawyer that defended Donkey Kong in court. And so Nintendo had lauded him
Nice.
as like a savior, so to speak, and like honored
See,
him
I
by
thought he was.
naming Kirby after that.
I thought he was named after Jack Kirby from Marvel Comics, but I could not like find that anywhere. So it's funny, but I didn't look that hard. But it just didn't show up on any of like the trivia pages I was looking at, so I just ignored that. But I was like curious in my head. I was like, I thought it was Jack Kirby, but now that I remember hearing that story before, so it does sound familiar. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about the history? I mean, it made its jump to 3D like pretty much everything did in Kirby 64 in 2000, but never really took off in 3D. The 3D games were kind of all. I do fully intend on having a topic on games that were able to make the jump to 3D successfully, and Kirby is not one of those games. Like, there's not been a Kirby game in a sort of a 3D space that has been, and by 3D I simply mean like being able to go any direction in a three-dimensional space instead of a 2D side scroller. It just hasn't done it. So Kirby's in the Forgotten Land is coming out in March, or in a couple weeks from this episode when this episode airs. So
Yep.
that is going to be the next big test for Kirby, right? For Kirby in a 3D space, right? So that is that's part of the reason why we're doing this episode now, is in honor of that coming out. Cool. All right. Anything else? History. I mean, I would say that the other big thing that kind of put Kirby on the map in many ways, though people were familiar with him, but his appearance in Smash Bros. I think really kind of definitely skyrocketed the popularity of that character. But
along with King DDD and Meta Knight and other, all the things, the items, all the star, like the star item was like introduced in the GameCube and Melee, where you pick up a star and slam down to the ground and blows everything up. Yeah, and like the star wand, where you could like shoot wands out of it. So like, it's not just the Kirby character in Smash Bros, but it's everywhere. It's pretty much ingrained.
I mean, well, it's made by, Kirby, Smash Bros was objectively Sakurai's more popular game, at least in the West. And so it doesn't, I guess I never knew until Ultimate that Kirby was also made by Sakurai. So the fact that his like pet Kirby is the one that gets all, I mean, so many items are from Kirby, like you said, and there are multiple characters from Kirby. And then, Kirby's the one who survives, right, in the storyline of Ultimate. So it's like, oh yeah, it's no wonder, because I mean, Sakurai, like, his Kirby influence was palpable in the development of Smash Bros. And all the entries. So,
and even like the platforming and like the recovery centric idea of what Smash Bros is, like recovering back onto the stage and jumping and platforming is all Kirby.
It's all very floaty like Kirby is. So it makes sense. So pretty cool how influential that game is, at least on Smash Bros, which again therefore makes it influential on like the gaming industry. We'll talk more about that, I guess, on that question. But all right, cool. Let's talk about your experiences first. What was your first experience? What do you love about the franchise, and why does it stand out to you as something you wanted to dedicate a whole episode to? I'll start real quick. I had definitely encountered Kirby games on the Game Boy, right? No doubt about it. Kirby's Dreamland. I think I just happened to be in friend circles that loved Kirby's Dreamland, because I remember seeing and playing and experiencing Kirby's Dreamland all throughout those sort of Game Boy days before we all got N64s. But my first like two real experiences with Kirby were very much in that N64 era, in the form of course of Smash Bros. Introducing, like, really, like, again, I knew who Kirby was, so it wasn't like Fire Emblem, where I was introduced to that franchise for the very first time through Smash. It was definitely a character that I was familiar with, but definitely one that I kind of slept on. But he was so fun in Smash Bros. So by the time Kirby 64 came out, that was like my Kirby game, and I freaking loved it. I loved Kirby 64. I played it. My cousin Janelle, and I just I remember she came over one time, and her and I spent like the whole week. Her family came over and like stayed the weekend with us, and we spent like that whole time, her and I, just playing the crap out of Kirby 64. And I couldn't tell you very much about the game now. Like, I remember it was where that like rainbow ship, I believe, first originated. But other than that, like, I barely remember anything except having so much fun with my cousin Janelle. So that was kind of it for me. And I haven't really played many Kirby entries since. So that's that.
All right. My first entry into Kirby was Kirby's Dreamland on the Game Boy. We got it as a gift. I believe it was Christmas time. And my brother and I, T-Bone, friend of the show, loved that game so much. We devoured it, played it over and over and over and over again. And then so much so that we got Kirby's Dreamland 2, which was like enhanced for Game Boy Color. And so it used it was just awesome. I had color stuff going on with it when I played it on my Game Boy Color, and it had the mounts you could ride and like copyability and all this awesome stuff. And then my favorite Kirby game is Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo, which we rented frequently. Unfortunately, we never had a chance to get it, and I actually picked it up as an adult, for my collection, my video game collection. So now I have it on the shelf. It's also on the Super Nintendo Classic. It's also on the Switch, the Nintendo Switch Online service, as is Kirby 64. If you have the expansion pack add on. But yeah, so I've then continued my love for Kirby into the Game Boy Advance. I have both of the Game Boy Advance side-scrolling entries. And then, like, at some point, it kind of died off. So I didn't get any of the Nintendo DS or 3DS games. And then for the Wii, I have the Return to Dreamland because it was like a callback to the OG Kirby. Loved that game. That game was awesome. It had like a world map, and it played very much like the original Kirby's. And then I want to say that was my last Kirby game because there was Kirby's Epic Yarn, which was really good, and that was for the Wii U. That
was the highest rated Kirby game. Highest rated on both Metacritic and game rankings. So Wikipedia listed it as the highest rated one, and I almost put that as my thing, but I don't really use game rankings as a site, and it was tied with something else on Metacritic, so I was like, eh. So I was iffy about that question. All things considered, it was a little bit less of an objective, fact-based question. So I was like, yeah, I'll leave that one out. But that was a fun little factoid. Kirby's Epic Yarn. Slept on it, apparently.
Yeah, and I played, I believe it was Java Fiend's copy of Epic Yarn with him, and it was awesome. We had a blast. Mm-hmm. And I believe there was a port for it on the 3DS, and I didn't play that one, and haven't really gotten back into Kirby since. So I'm looking forward to Forgotten Lands.
Me too. It looks I need to watch the trailer though. I still haven't watched the trailer.
The newest one with the full mouth mode, or like full load in your mouth mode, or whatever the crap it's called, where he like swallows a car. But I don't know what. I honestly don't know what it's called. But yeah, you should go watch the trailer. It's really good.
Man, you just
the Rainbow Curse. That was the one for the Wii U. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. I did not play that one, but that was the Wii U entry. Yes.
That 13-year-old boy inside me just could not stop from cracking up with him.
Oh, I know. I said it that way on purpose.
Good. Perfect. All right. Well, then that leads us to our next segment. We're going to continue to talk subjectively here about some favorites and rankings, and not a huge list, so we should be able to knock it out pretty fast. What's your favorite game in the franchise? Mainline game. I will say mainline game. So like objectively Kirby games, whether it's 2D or 3D, but still with that sort of core gameplay loop that we all know and love.
My favorite is Kirby Superstar by far.
Nice. Still, mine obviously, I think I hinted at it, is Kirby 64 because it is one of my few experiences with it. But never cared too much for Dreamland, all things considered. Cool. Favorite spin-off content? Is it the cartoon from the 90s, or is it Smash Bros? What's your favorite spin-off?
If you count Smash Bros as a Kirby spin-off, then that's by far my favorite spin-off of Kirby.
I think might as well. I was fond of the cartoon though, so that's what Right Back at You, which is why I brought it up.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Did you ever watch it?
Wait, did you know? Yeah,
Kirby, saving the day. Kirby, he's here to stay.
But if you look at the show, the title Kirby Right Back at Ya is KRBY. That's his name without the I.
Oh,
did you know
that? No, I did not.
Yeah, it was named like that on purpose.
Right Back at You.
Yeah.
Oh, RBY.
Yeah. Kirby. Right back at you.
Right back at you. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So KRBY.
So
gotcha.
Right. What's your favorite character?
Kirby.
Of whatever characters are out there. Of course, Kirby. You like the little baby pink gumball. He is pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. For a baby,
he's ridiculously
pink gumball
practical.
Being the
he can
protagonist. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of people probably put like DDD or Meta Knight because they have this cool like skill set moves. And, Meta Knight's got swords and stuff. But Kirby can copy everything.
I know. It is an awesome ability. I just wish I want the grown-up Kirby. Come on, give me the Kirby who smoking a cigar and talking a bunch of crap on that's what I want. So therefore, my favorite character is the definition of edgelord Meta Knight, which I'll take it. I'll own it. Whatever. A bit of an edgelord myself, so yeah, I'll take my criticism there of Meta Knight. But that's all right for me.
Yeah.
I was also a big fan of Shadow the Hedgehog and Knuckles for the same reasons, because they're such edgelords.
Sick, yeah.
They're so cute. I love them. They're so dark and tall, dark, and handsome. Also, if Shadow does not show up at the end of the next Sonic movie, I'm gonna rage. In a post.
Oh yeah, how about that? It's coming out soon. Yep.
Yeah. What is your favorite power?
Ooh,
if you want a list of the copy abilities, I can send it to you. Otherwise, you gotta figure it out on your own. I'll say Sakurai is the fighter. Sakurai, I love the fighter.
Yeah, he did. The close range, yep. Mine was always the sword with the green hat. and like the sword.
Me too. For almost
And
exclusively the reason of the green hat and the Zelda homage that it
yeah,
clearly is. Yeah.
right.
Like,
hmm
there's no other like game related thing in the history of games, especially Nintendo games, that has that associates sword with green hat. So it's
Right.
clearly a Zelda reference, right? And given that it's Nintendo, of course, it was an homage to Zelda.
It was. My favorite part of that whole ability, though, was you could sprint, but you could dash and then jump
Oh,
and then
nice.
press the attack button in the air, and he would do like the full 360 sword circle thing, and it would just
Yeah.
demolish everything in the air
Just
in an
wreck.
arc. And so I would just like run through levels and just like constantly spam that move and just clear everything really fast.
I
It made me
kind
feel
of
really good.
wish that instead of like copying the direct abilities of the Smash Bros characters, I kind of wish that whatever character you absorbed, you got one of his classic abilities, right? So if you absorbed Pit, you'd get the Archer ability. If you absorbed Mewtwo, you'd get the ESP or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
so each that would have been, in my opinion, that would have been cooler than just literally getting a copy of their ability. Still give them the hat, still give him the hat, right? But yeah. Cool. What's your favorite boss/enemy? Who's the best bad guy in Kirby?
There was this awesome boss fight in, I believe it was Superstar, that mimicked an RPG encounter. And it was a black background entirely. And yeah, it was definitely Superstar. He took up the top half of the screen, and there was a bunch of text that came up. And as things happened, it would like narrate in the bottom as if you were playing a retro Final Fantasy game, or like
That's awesome.
it was awesome. And it was
That's
so
awesome.
cool. And it was always a tough fight, but that was my favorite. It was very Earthboundy, which of course like it's related. There's a Venn diagram of like Smash Bros, Earthbound, and Kirby, and yeah, there's a lot of Earthboundy like vibes from that boss fight. It was just
Nice.
that boss fight, which is really cool because like the whole game is this whole platformer, and like boom, you're suddenly like in a black room, and you have this, everything slows down, the text at the bottom, and it's really cool. So look it up if you are curious at all about that boss fight. I don't remember the name of the boss, unfortunately.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I'm gonna rep my foul cousin here and talk DDD. I don't care for DDD as a character necessarily. I really hated him in the cartoon, but I do love him in Smash. Like, I've kind of slept on DDD for a long time, but if you ever just want to play someone that's a big old slow heavy monster that can just troll people with the bouncing spike ball, like I love him. He's so satisfying to play in Smash Bros. Even though I suck with him and he does kind of objectively suck, he's got some moves that just make it really fun to pull off. So I'll go with DD as my favorite baddie there. Cool. And then finally, favorite Kirby Smash forms. So harkening back then to that discussion there of Smash Bros. Who's your favorite person to masquerade as, or favorite other Smash character to masquerade as with Kirby? Like, which one's got the cutest hat, so to speak?
Oh, I really haven't put that. What does Banjo Kirby look like? Oh, ew, that's gross.
I'll say mine. I love both, either the Samus or the Dark Samus. Just like the tiny little helmet.
Like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
He just looks so cool. He looks like he's like, it's what I love is when it's like it actually looks menacing, but it's Kirby, right? So if you nail that little like middle ground between, I find like they're either too cute or too like ugly, right? And very few of them actually look as cool as the character he's meant to copy, while also still being adorably cute. And I feel like that's most encapsulated in the Samus helmet. Like,
and Dark Samus looks like the Mandalorian, which is ridiculous. And I'm
Have I
looking
told-
through pictures of them now. Oh, the Game & Watch Kirby is awesome.
Oh, that's a good one too. That is a great one because it's the silhouette, right? Yeah. Oh man, classic. Awesome.
Oh, and like Ivysaur Kirby is awful. That's not cool at all.
All right, moving on. Let's go with impact, influence, innovation. What has Kirby brought to the industry and the culture of those three eyes? Like I said, obviously in the form of its influence on other games, specifically Smash Bros. And then the influence Smash Bros. Would go on to have. We did an episode of Everything Smash Bros. Way long time ago, so you can hear more of our thoughts on that. But like, you got to give credit to Kirby for much of Smash Bros. Existence. Not only Sakurai, of course, being the creator of both and his influence on both games, but just the fact that like so much of Smash Bros., like you said, was influenced by Kirby. And I mean, the copying ability thing, like, I'm not going to say the games directly copy it, but man, that like the idea of like using the powers of your enemies, like I feel like Kirby kind of started that trend. even the idea of Pokemon, right? All the Pokemon you catch are the same Pokemon that you fight, right? So you're in a way you could argue that by catching Pokemon, you are using the powers of your opponents. Lost Kingdoms does it. Even the game we started on this podcast, Elden Ring, like you get those ashes, right? The ashes of the enemies, and all the ashes you get are from enemies you fight in the world. So it's just the idea of like using your enemy's powers against them. I think Kirby, kind of as cute and adorable as it is, I think it really kind of popularized that trend in games. So I'll say those kind of things.
There's a lot to talk about with unpacking what Kirby is. So like Nintendo strategically wanted to appeal to as many people as possible. And so we had Mario, you had Metroid. Metroid's very dark, kind of probably for teenagers when it first came out, older crowd. And then you had Zelda, which at the time, the original Zelda was the full-blown PC RPG experience translated to a home console, which was definitely geared for an older audience. I would argue that Zelda started off like not as a super kiddie game just because it had so much RPG influence with no map, no guidance, you were lost in this big giant world, and you kind of had to have intuition and the ability to draw maps in order to work your way through that without the help of like a player's guide. And I just think that would go over a lot of kids' heads. And that's speaking from my own parenting experience with my children, with which games out of the Nintendo repertoire are the most accessible by my 4, 5, now 6-year-old as he's grown up. And the original Zelda was something he put down and left behind like in no time. And even I remember as myself as a kid,
N64, we're disowning him. You know this.
Well, by then he'll be old enough to understand it.
For Ocarina of Time. Really?
Yeah.
How old does he need to be to play the Zelda game? I'm just thinking about when I played it and fell in love with it.
Oh, he's allowed to play it now. It's just a matter of his own interest. He's just not going to be interested in it. But thinking about like
he's not invited to Thanksgiving.
Okay, all right. Now, how old were you when Ocarina of Time came out?
I don't know. I was
10.
1997. I would have been
96.
7 years old. Yeah. I was 6.
Yeah, 97,
so
right.
But I wouldn't have played it till 1997. So 7, I guess. So 2 years. He's got 2 years. 2 years to before he can.
He probably will love it by then.
He better. If he cannot match me.
Yeah, but you didn't have Breath of the Wild at that time either.
That's true. That's true. I mean, though, to be here's what I would accept. Okay, total side tangent. I'll probably actually cut all this, but I want to communicate this to you. Breath of the Wild is to modern kids what Ocarina of Time was to us.
That's true.
So therefore, I would accept he would be invited back to Thanksgiving if even if he hated Ocarina of Time. Oh, fine. It's a janky old game from Dad's childhood. Breath of the Wild, if he accepted it for what it was, I'd be like, okay, all right, fine. I'm not going to be a janky old person. Carry on.
Cool.
What were you saying?
Yes. All right. Influence. So Mario, Metroid, Zelda, Kirby was totally and unarguably the kid wing. Like,
unashamedly.
Let's get all of the kids involved on the younger end of the spectrum, probably like 3, 4-year-olds. The Gameboy was a hit, like portable. It was durable, big clunky plastic thing. It was relatively inexpensive for what it was. Give it to your kid, play Kirby. And so that influence it trickled into exposing other video game companies like Sega, for example, to expand their horizons. So anytime now we have this giant wing of games that are all like geared towards children that don't just exist on Nintendo. You actually see strategies across Sony and Microsoft to offer child-friendly titles, of which I don't really know much about. Unfortunately, like I know Minecraft is a child-friendly game, right, but they're less popular, of course. But Kirby had influence there. It definitely showed the industry that parents will buy games for kids, and that this is a little kid industry as well as a big kid and teenager genre. Yeah, again, at the time, 90s, like everything was geared towards like the young boys, and so that's what bought video games. But Kirby showed the world that not just boys, every kid of any gender of flavor could enjoy Kirby because it's very, very neutral in every regard. Also, the music was a bop, and it still hits and slaps, and I still listen to Kirby music occasionally. And of course, the Smash Bros, like that's awesome and totally influential in the gaming industry. But also look at the last thing, I guess Mario Odyssey, like being able to throw Cappy and like control enemies or control things in the environment, totally like a tangent from Kirby. What Kirby kind of started or laid the groundwork for, opened the design possibilities to game developers to add things into other games. And so I think, like you had mentioned, the copy ability, using enemies' abilities against them, kind of a more innovative way of looking at that would be like throwing a hat and then controlling that thing as Mario, turning Mario into a dinosaur, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it was pretty influential, I have to say. And it's still bumping, it's still going. And then they later like pivoted and did the Kirby Epic Yarn, where everything in the entire game is made of actual, and they used yarn to animate that. And then the Rainbow Cruise, where everything was made out of clay, and that kind of tracked along like Yoshi's Crafted World, where they started using arts and crafts around the room, or around your like kids' art room closet to like construct a game. So we have Yoshi's Crafted World because we had Kirby's Epic Yarn, because we had Kirby. So you can see that like line of influence mostly in the Nintendo household, Nintendo camp, but it is influential and it has created and spawned some innovation and some fun new ways to like explore the 3D side scrolling or non 3D side scrolling genre. So there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, then our last question that we will close out with is, what would you like to see from the Kirby franchise in the future? What would you be your Kirby game wish list? Your dream Kirby game, if you will. What is it? What technology would it leverage? What would its genre, style, whatever? What would that be for you?
They have done it. It's Kirby's Forgotten Lands.
That was what I was gonna say. Like that would have been my answer. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just riffing off the open world trend. My big thing is that I've just been wanting them to give the 3D space another crack. Like the games have such a unique and interesting like set of mechanics that there's no way it shouldn't work. Just because just because it had a rough start doesn't mean, same with Sonic, right? Just because it's had a few rough 3D entries doesn't mean the entire notion is like unworkable, right? And Castlevania, that's another one that needs to like make the jump. So I do think that that would have been my answer, but they're doing it, right? So that's exactly it. I was joking about the grizzled older like Kirby, like it should never ever be that. Like it's supposed to be for kids, and so I just hope
bubbly,
that, like,
cute, and fun.
I want Forgotten Land to
bop.
be a success so I can introduce my son to Kirby, right? Because I think he'll love it. And I don't have like
My son's obsessed with it. He's never played it. I don't know how he's like drawing Kirby and he's talking about it all the time. I guess he's got kids at school that are friends.
Yeah.
And he's dabbled with Kirby Superstar on the Nintendo Switch Online service.
Yeah.
So that's there, and he's played a little bit there, but he's just like obsessed. It like totally got its hooks in him. So
nice.
It's easy.
That's awesome. Well, we can finish like seriously on time if we have nothing else about Kirby. Do you have any final? I will even give you time for final closing thoughts, because I don't really have anything else on my like Kirby dream wish list. So yeah, final thoughts on Kirby. What do you, this franchise? Your last words on it.
I really want them to bring, them being Nintendo, to bring all of the Kirby games as much as they can to the Nintendo Switch Online. It would be super fun to have
the archive.
All of them. There was a collection on the Wii that I have, and I love that, and I bought it for that very reason. But I want them to bring the Game Boy Advance ones over, and like all of those, which we don't have that on the Nintendo Switch Online. So that's my Kirby wish list: is bring all of the DS, 3DS, Game Boy Advance titles, bring them all into the Switch, because I want to play.
I know that Nintendo doesn't really like to like cover old ground, but I do find that I, for one, really enjoy the notion of the like the full blown remake. Like I'm talking like the Final Fantasy VII remake, or the Resident Evil 2 remakes. Like I feel like those games are really good because it's sort of that mix of familiar and new that, but when well done and well thought out, like is really, really compelling to me, right? Because it's on the same token, it's like, okay, yeah, I know this, I'm familiar with this, but it's also all new. It's like a reimagining entirely of an old franchise. And there are several Nintendo games that I think would do well with that. But I would really love to see either, like, again, I'm partial towards Kirby 64, and I was just looking at pictures of it, and I was like, how did I love this game? It looks so bad. But that's so many N64 games, right? But I would be fine with either that or Dreamland, right? Like a full-blown Dreamland reimagining in a 3D space, I feel like could be really, really well done. And I know Nintendo's probably not going to do it because, like I said, they don't like to tread over old ground like that. But I feel like that would, on the list of Nintendo games I would want to see fully reimagined, Kirby, I think, would be up there alongside like some of the older Mario games and perhaps a Zelda game or two, like Link to the Past. Can you imagine full-blown like Breath of the Wild style reimagining?
Stop.
Yeah.
I would lose my mind.
With both a dark world and a overworld to explore. I'm just saying.
I was thinking how like Elden Ring reminded me of Twilight Princess a lot.
Oh, so yeah. There's that. Dude, like I said, there's a lot of DNA that Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and Zelda all share, right?
Yeah.
The targeting is Z targeting. It's just a bit more modernized than Z targeting was, right? Even then, not that by that much. So yeah, I really think that those games are close bedfellows, and I would love to see a collaboration. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Kirby. Or we're not talking about it because we're done. So let's, instead of continuing to talk about this, we're going to go play Elden Ring, obviously, because we can't stop talking about it. So any final thoughts that our listeners have on Kirby? They can reach out to us, share about us, their first experiences. They can share how much they love the game. They can share how much they just absolutely hate Kirby, how they, Kirby, I don't know, called their mom fat or something when they were a kid, and just like they hate it for that reason. We want to hear that. That's valid. You had an experience with that, and we want to hear it and be sympathetic towards that. And maybe try to help point you to the fact that it's not the game's fault for the way that people are cruel to you. And I don't know. Yep, that's what we want to share. And you can share all those thoughts and more, where Termite is going to share with you right now.
You can tell us all about how Kirby Superstar is your favorite Kirby game by going to 80-bit Podsmash, 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website where you can find links to all of our social media outlets: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. We also have a Discord server. There's a link to all of those. Jump in, discuss with us. That's what Discord is all about, right? To have a Discord about
Discourse.
video games. Yeah, how about that? And we also have links if you're coming by way of Twitch or YouTube or some other way, and you want more from us. We have podcasting platforms on that website as well: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, the whole gamut. So hit us up, like, subscribe, and share. Leave a review, and we will read it on the show. We do track our websites. We look at our stats, and we would love to have some more awesome, friendly folks like yourselves interacting with awesome, friendly folks like yourselves and us. So please go expand our community and talk awesomely about 80-bit Podsmash.
Nice. All right, so in honor of our celebration of all things March 25th, this epic month where so many games are all coming out at one time. We talked about that last week. We're talking about Kirby this week. We're going to riff off of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands that's coming out at the end of the month as well. We're going to talk about fantasy games. Fantasy, of course, being a literary genre, not a video game like gameplay genre. So it's hard to use that term. So fantasy flavored games, but also specifically kind of riffing off this idea of games that like are trying to recreate D&D, the D&D experience in a video game. So we're going to talk about kind of like, it's going to be a mix of talking about how D&D and tabletop games have been influential on video games, but specifically trying to translate those notions into a video game setting, and then also talking about the flavor of fantasy games. Again, all this being primarily inspired by Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is all of those things in a Borderlands game, basically. So we will talk about that, and it'll air on March 21st, right before this epic day, and we'll see you then.
See you next week.